I'm sharing a clip today from my live video broadcast on January 17th. We're going to paint a full moon in watercolor. Check out my live weekly lessons on YouTube by subscribing to my channel. This is just a very simple sketch that I did thinking about our full moon, trying out some colors. It's important, I think, to not just try out how you're going to paint your scene, but also to be thinking about the colors you're going to use. What colors are going to work the best? And so in this one, I was trying out, this is dioxazine violet. I was working with Moon Glow, which is a beautiful granulating pigment from Daniel Smith. And I was working with Sodalite Genuine, which is also granulating. So I got some amazing texture. Moving in closer so you can see it. And I can't really hold it still enough so that it focuses properly. So I got some amazing texture there, and that was so much fun. And then I also got to use the sharp end of one of my paintbrushes, and I actually scraped right into my paper to get these little texture lines. So that was pretty fun. And it was just getting me thinking about how do you get that beautiful glowing moon. We don't want to paint using metallic colors or anything. I wanted to do it just with watercolor. And so here was my opportunity to experiment with that and get those contrasts and get that beautiful glow. And then from there, I was able to feel more confident about painting a night scene. And so then I went to try a little sketch of, this one is again of a scene in my region. And I just used a scrap of paper. I don't throw anything away. I love using scraps over and over again. Both sides, filling it up with paint, just making sure I've gotten my money's worth out of my paper. And actually this little sketch is one of those where the magic did show up. And I absolutely love everything about this sketch. I think I might have to frame it. But you know, that I think sometimes that freshness and that feeling that we love comes because I approach this as a sketch. It's a small piece of paper. I have nothing to lose. I'm going to just try some dramatic colors. This is a Paraline green from Daniel Smith, and it's an amazing, rich, deep green. And then I was working with, again, some beautiful blues, ultramarine, indigo, the Sodalite Genuine, and getting that full moon sense. And then from there, I wanted to develop it into a larger painting. And so then I had to pull out a bigger sheet of paper and commit a little more to trying something that was going to turn out. So I've gone from a very simple scene, you know, just basically two pieces, sky and land, and then working out different ideas and trying out colors. And then I've gone to trying to work it into a scene with a bit more depth. This is supposed to be like a ridge and a little ravine with a little bit of ice down here, a little creek at the bottom. And so, and then how do I place the trees and where do I stop? So from there, then I wanted to make that into a full painting. And this is where I'm hoping we'll have room for you guys to see most of it. Yeah, you can see most of it here. So here I have a larger sheet of paper that I wanted to do the exact, you know, the same scene, only bigger. And then of course, if you're doing something bigger, then you generally want to throw in more detail, or those little details that seem so quick and easy in a smaller painting suddenly start to become a little more difficult as they're more visible in a larger scene. This one I'm not completely happy with, and I can show you why. One thing that kind of fell apart on this one was I really like the way I painted the trees down here, but they don't really match the trees up here. So I think I'd like to do it again, working with trees with this shape more than with this shape. And I'm always changing how I paint different things. My way of painting evergreen trees has changed over the years and has developed. This to me has a little more of a calligraphy kind of look, and I really like that. So I'd like to use that, you know, throughout my painting and not just have two very different styles of trees. The other thing that bothers me about this painting is this area right here. And in my little sketch, it's just kind of a white space and there's nothing happening there. But I felt like I needed to add more detail in this area. And that was kind of a mistake because even if this area needed more detail, I hadn't planned it in that original sketch. And so now here I am with working without the benefit of testing out an idea. So I didn't test out this idea. I tried it on my big sheet of paper and I kind of messed up. So now this whole painting is kind of on hold. I can either keep painting and turn this into a study where I'm trying to work out ideas and paint this whole scene again, which I think is what I'll do. Again, not wanting to waste paper, and as a learner, I'm going to just keep painting and say, I'm going to make this my experimentation ground now, and then the next painting will be the one where I can take all these ideas and bring them all together. And now I have 3 different scenes that all fit together to teach me something about painting a night scene, painting a full moon, and then also now adding in that whole idea of painting this little ravine. So it's a process, and I'd have to give it time if I want it to work out. And the cool thing is, whether or not this big one turns out, I still have this little guy that I like very much. So that's a little bonus. Oh, I do have a question about my moon. Did I lift out the moon in the photo, or how did I achieve that? What I did with my moon was, and I can probably show you, I have a scrap of paper here. It's digressing from what we had planned to do, but here, I have a piece, here's a dirty piece of scrap paper, so I'll show you right here. What I did with my moon, and I don't have my indigo here, so I'll just have to pick a different color. You know what's really pretty for dark blue is the ultramarine turquoise and the dioxazine violet. They make a pretty color together. That could work for a night sky. Okay, so what I did with my moon, and I feel like my brush isn't going to cooperate today, but we'll just give it a try, is I just painted in that circle, and you can see I'm painting it a little bigger than I want it to be, because then I can go in and tighten it up very carefully. But then then I bled out from the sides, letting that color flow. And notice it's getting very light now as I dampen it. And then I'm very careful to tidy up my circle. And if you're not confident that you can draw a good circle, you can very lightly sketch one. I don't know, I'm just an obstinate kind of person who likes to freehand everything. Then I took, you know, more beautiful pigment, more of that violet, more of that turquoise, maybe a little bit, there's some moon glow in my palette that I can add. And I started to drop that in. And then I wanted some softness, that feeling of clouds going over the moon. So that's just a matter of letting some of that color bleed in, using a damp brush. And some of that color can flow in. And that also is a really good way to hide if your circle isn't perfectly round. And then with a damp brush, you also want to control those shadows. And so I use that damp brush to suck up when too much color comes on. Then I can use my brush to lift that color and keep my moon from getting too dark. And I just kind of went back and forth like little clouds kind of scudding across. And you can see my moon has a real glow to it, just even in that one layer. Although from here, once this has dried, then I can go in with another layer of dark color and tighten up those the lines around the moon, make a little more contrast between the edge of the moon and the sky, which is what I did on this one. You can see I went over this here. You can see all kinds of color where the blue bled into the moon. I blotted it so it wasn't too dark, and then once it was dry, I went in and gave it that outline again. So that kind of gives you an idea of how I did that. And again, I would probably just want to keep an eye on this as long as it was drying, and then use my damp brush to lift out color if it started to get too dark again, and just keep blotting lightly. You can use your paper towel, but you have less control than your brush. You can use just the point of your brush to lift and smooth out some of that color a little bit. So that kind of gives you an idea. And look at all the pretty things that are happening with just the mixture of water and pigment. There's little blooms that are happening here on the paper, and I think I can bring it in a little closer for you to see. And all those blooms give beautiful texture. So it's kind of fun. It's a scary thing to paint a moon because it's such a round object, and we think, oh, I can't paint a circle that round and perfect. I'm going to mess up. But it's actually not as hard as you would think it was. Just go for it. If you like this lesson, you're going to love my YouTube channel. Subscribe today. And if you're not already one of the 8,000 plus students who have joined me on my learning site at learn.angelafehr.com, I encourage you to check out the courses there. You get structured content, step-by-step demonstrations on a variety of subject matter and topics related to watercolor. My goal is to help you express yourself more fluently in watercolor, to really explore your personal style and master watercolor techniques. You can find all that at learn.angelafehr.com.